Welcome to Esoteric Guardian. Today we delve into the dark and enigmatic symbolism of Alice in Wonderland, a work that, far from being a mere children's tale, is imbued with hidden messages, esoteric references, and allegories that have fascinated and unsettled generations. Published in 1865 and written by Charles Lutwidge Dodgson, better known by his pen name, Lewis Carroll, this story has been interpreted in multiple ways over time. Behind the apparent innocence of its pages, we find traces of secret societies, initiation rituals, references to altered states of consciousness, and deep, unsettling philosophical and occult concepts. Could it be that Lewis Carroll encoded messages that only a select few can decipher? Is this merely a fantasy? Or are we looking at a work filled with esoteric symbolism, even used in processes of mind control and psychological manipulation? Alice Pleasance Little is not just a fictional character. Before becoming the girl who chased a white rabbit into an absurd world, she was a real child, flesh and blood, and the muse of Lewis Carroll. What few know is that the relationship between the author and his inspiration has been shrouded in a veil of mystery, controversy, and secrets that to this day send shivers down the spine. Carroll met Alice when she was just 4 years old. Immediately, the child became his obsession. For years, he spent countless hours with her and her sisters, inventing stories and games that would later give birth of Alice in Wonderland. But behind the apparent innocence, there are unsettling details that have led many to question the true nature of their relationship. The writer had a peculiar passion: photography. In the Victorian era, photography was a relatively new art, and Carroll explored it fervently, but with a recurring and disturbing theme: young girls in poses that, seen through today's eyes, are deeply unsettling. It is known that he took multiple portraits of girls in settings that we could call suggestive, which I cannot explicitly name because YouTube would demonetize the video, all under the pretext of capturing the purity of childhood. Even in his time, these images caused discomfort. Many were deliberately destroyed and others disappeared without a trace. What remains is enough for some historians and critics to suspect that Carroll crossed lines that were only beginning to be questioned in his era. But the most disturbing part is what we will never know. In 1863, suddenly and without explanation, the Little family cut all ties with Carroll. From one day to the next, his presence in Alice's life ended completely. What happened? No one knows for sure. Crucial pages of his diary were torn out and never recovered. Theories about this abrupt break vary, but they all point to a sinister possibility. Some believe that Carroll may have asked for Alice's hand in marriage when she was only 11 years old, something that, while strange, was not entirely unthinkable. The Victorian era. Others suggest that the Little family discovered something far more disturbing, something so dark that they decided to erase the evidence and banish his memory. What remains is an unsettling void, an absence of answers that only fuels the worst suspicions. Was Lewis Carroll simply an innocent man with an unusual fixation on childhood? Or was it something far more sinister, hidden beneath the disguise of a fairy tale? The story begins with Alice, a girl trapped in the monotony of her world. While her sister reads a book without illustrations, she feels restless, as if her mind is destined for something greater. Her dissatisfaction is the first indication that she is awakening from the dream of common reality. It is no coincidence that she is a child, for in esoteric tradition the child represents the initiate, one who has not yet been fully conditioned by the structures of society. Then the white rabbit appears. Dressed in a vest and holding a pocket watch, he mutters, "Oh dear, I shall be late." Without hesitation, Alice follows him. This is the breaking point from the ordinary world, the threshold that separates everyday reality from the realm of mystery. In esoteric terms, the white rabbit plays the role of the psychopomp, the initiatory guide who leads the soul through spiritual transition. He is the equivalent of Hermes Trismegistus in Hermetic tradition, Virgil in Dante's Divine Comedy, or Anubis in Egyptian mythology. But the white rabbit is also a slave to time. He is obsessed with the hour, urgency, and the fear of being late. Here another occult concept emerges: time as a prison. In alchemy and hermeticism, linear time is considered an illusion imposed upon human consciousness. Following the white rabbit is akin to entering this cycle of worry, clocks, and anxiety, an endless chase where time rules over existence. Alice falls down the rabbit hole, but her fall is not merely physical, it is symbolic. In all esoteric traditions, the initiate must descend into the underworld before they can be reborn. In the mysteries of Eleusis, neophytes spent days in complete darkness before receiving revelation. In alchemy, Negredo is the stage of the decomposition of matter before its transmutation into gold. Alice undergoes the same process. She falls, floating past disordered objects, as her perception of reality fractures. When she lands, she finds herself in a hallway filled with locked doors. This represents the liminal state in esoteric initiation, the intermediate space where the old world no longer exists, but the new one has yet to be revealed. At the center of the room, she finds a golden key and a bottle labeled "Drink Me." Here, another alchemical symbol emerges. In ancient transformation rituals, initiates consumed substances to expand their perception. In the Eleusinian mysteries, a sacred drink was consumed. In alchemy, the elixir of immortality was sought. Alice drinks the potion and her body begins to change size, losing control over her own form. This is the collapse of the ego. In alchemy, transformation begins with the dissolution of the previous identity. In terms of psychological manipulation, this is the moment when the victim experiences a dissociation from reality, making them more vulnerable to reprogramming. Alice passes through the door and enters Wonderland. Here, everything becomes more chaotic and symbolic. Her first significant encounter is with the blue caterpillar, who smokes his pipe and asks her the fundamental question, "Who are you?" In esoteric tradition, the master does not provide answers, but pushes the disciple to find them on their own. The caterpillar represents the initiatory teacher, similar to gurus in Hinduism or mentors in secret societies. But he is also a symbol of transformation. Soon he will become a butterfly, just as Alice must evolve on her own spiritual journey. From this point onward, Wonderland becomes a labyrinth of trials. Each character Alice meets subjects her to mental challenges, absurd logic games, and contradictions. This mirrors the initiatory rites of esoteric societies, where the initiate is tested in ways that challenge their understanding of reality. In mind, control systems, exposure to contradictory information, is a technique used to fragment the psyche and make it more susceptible to suggestion. One of the most representative encounters in this phase is the tea party with the Mad Hatter and the March Hare. This is not just an eccentric gathering, but a representation of time as a prison. The Mad Hatter is trapped in an eternal loop, forever stuck at tea time because time has stopped for him. This reflects a concept found in Hermeticism and occult philosophy. Time is not linear, but those who fail to understand this become trapped in its endless repetition. In alchemical tradition, mercury is a key element, and the Mad Hatter was inspired by 19th century hat makers who suffered from mercury poisoning, which drove them insane. This is tied to the idea of wisdom taken to the extreme, where deep knowledge can lead to alienation and madness. Another fundamental character in this phase is the Cheshire Cat, who appears and disappears, leaving only his unsettling grin behind. In esotericism, he symbolizes hidden knowledge, something that is never fully revealed, but only understood in fragments. His famous phrase, "We're all mad here," is not just a joke, but an allusion to a Gnostic principle. In a world of illusions, the only truth is madness. Alice begins to realize that the rules of Wonderland are arbitrary, that there is no real order, only chaos disguised as logic. This is the point where the initiation reaches its questioning phase. The initiate starts to see beyond the illusion. However, she is still trapped within the game. She has yet to reach the breaking point where she will confront the ultimate authority of the system. This first half of the story shows her going through ego fragmentation, initiatory confusion, and symbolic trials. But she has not yet reached the great revelation. She is not fully awakened, but she is no longer the Alice who fell down the rabbit hole. Alice has passed through the initial phase of her journey. She has experienced the fragmentation of her identity, the questioning of reality, and the chaos of Wonderland. But her trial is not yet over. Now she must face the ultimate manifestation, the system, the authoritarian power that governs this absurd reality. Her path leads her to the Queen of Hearts' garden, a place where logic remains a farce. There she finds the gardeners painting white roses red, because they planted the wrong color, and now fear execution. This is a symbol of reality manipulation. Instead of accepting mistakes, they are hidden, masked, and altered to create the illusion of order. It is the reflection of a system where truth does not matter, only the illusion of control. Then the Queen of Hearts appears, screaming her infamous order off with their heads. Off with their heads. The Queen is the symbol of absolute tyranny, of arbitrary power that does not require reason, only fear. In esoteric terms, she represents the demiurge, the entity that in Gnosticism imposes a false reality upon the spirit, condemning it to ignorance. Her reign is based on blind obedience. Her subjects fear her punishments, but they are rarely carried out. She is the embodiment of domination systems that exist only because the dominated believe in them. The Queen's croquet game is a key scene in the second half of the story. It is played with flamingos as mallets and hedgehogs as balls, and the entire system is complete chaos. Nothing functions properly, the rules constantly change, and the outcome depends entirely on the Queen's whims. Carol did not choose these elements randomly. In Victorian society, flamingos were symbols of luxury and false elegance, while hedgehogs represented the common people. The Queen wields flamingos as tools of power, symbolizing the aristocracy, and strikes hedgehogs who attempt to resist and escape. It is a satirical representation of power dynamics, where the lower classes are used and discarded at the convenience of the elite. But it is also an allegory of illusionary control. The system only works as long as everyone pretends it does. Alice begins to see the fragility of the world around her. Unlike the other characters, she does not fear the Queen, and with each challenge, her confidence grows. This is the final phase of esoteric awakening, where the initiate starts to clearly see the structures of power and their true nature. At last, Alice is taken to trial in a ridiculous court. She is accused of a nonsensical crime, the evidence is absurd, and the rules shift at the Queen's convenience. This scene symbolizes the farce of justice in a world ruled by arbitrary power. The trial is not a mechanism of truth, but a tool of control. The legal system, here presented as a parody, exists only to validate the ruler's power. But something has changed in Alice. She is no longer the confused girl who fell down the rabbit hole. She has gone through the initiatory process. She has seen the chaos of Wonderland. She has understood that the rules are an illusion. And at the crucial moment, she faces the Queen and speaks the words that shatter the spell. "You're nothing but a pack of cards." And with that single phrase, Wonderland collapses. This is the moment of final revelation. In esoteric tradition, the initiate can only complete their transformation when they see beyond the illusion. Alice has realized that the world she has been trapped in is fragile, a construct based on fear and obedience. By defying it, she destroys it. It is the equivalent of Buddhist enlightenment, of Gnostic transcendence. Then Alice wakes up. She is back in the real world, in the field where it all began. But the most unsettling question remains unanswered. Has she truly awakened? For decades, Alice in Wonderland has been the subject of multiple conspiracy theories, suggesting that Lewis Carroll's work is far more than just a children's fantasy story. Some believe it is a coded narrative about mind control and psychological manipulation, while others suggest it represents the effects of psychoactive substances, or even serves as a hidden message about secret societies and their operations in the world. Its symbolism is too precise to be mere coincidence, and the connections to occult practices and mind control programs have been studied by researchers of the mysterious for years. One of the most unsettling aspects is the link between Alice in Wonderland and mind control techniques, specifically K-Ultra. This program, developed by the CIA in the 1950s and 1960s, used drugs, hypnosis, disorientation, and trauma to fragment the victim's psyche and create new controlled identities. In the story, Alice undergoes a similar transformation, falling down the rabbit hole, losing control of her size and facing illogical and absurd situations that challenge her perception of reality. These same methods were used in MK Ultra to induce dissociative states. In programming techniques, victims were subjected to nonsensical phrases and extreme environmental changes to destabilize their identity. Exactly what Alice experiences with the Mad Hatter, the March Hare, and the Queen of Hearts. The constant distortion of reality in the story has also led some to suggest that Alice in Wonderland is a disguised narrative of hallucinogenic drug experiences. Carroll wrote the book during a time when drug experimentation was common in intellectual circles, and the references are undeniable. The blue caterpillar smokes a pipe, which is a clear allusion to opium, a widely used drug in Victorian England. Alice changes size after consuming liquids and mushrooms, a representation of altered perception, similar to LSD and psilocybin effects. Even falling down the rabbit hole resembles a trance-like state induced by psychedelic substances. It is no coincidence that decades later, the book was embraced by the psychedelic culture of the 1960s as a symbol of the trip into other dimensions of consciousness. Another theory suggests that the story is laden with occult messages and references to secret societies. Carroll had deep knowledge of mathematics and philosophy, but was also fascinated by riddles, inverted logic, and symbols, elements fundamental to mystery schools and Freemasonry. Wonderland operates as a world governed by hidden laws, where only those who understand its logic can navigate it. Alice is an initiate, passing through trials similar to the rituals of esoteric societies, where aspirants are subjected to challenges that force them to rethink their understanding of reality. The Queen of Hearts represents the tyrannical authority of the system, an echo of the Gnostic demiurge, the entity that keeps humanity trapped in a false reality. By the end of the story, Alice realizes that the Queen's power is an illusion and defies it, a message reminiscent of occult teachings about awakening from the illusion of material existence. Even darker interpretations claim that Carroll subtly exposed the dynamics of abuse within the Victorian aristocracy. His obsession with Alice Little, the real girl who inspired the story, has been debated for years. In this context, Wonderland could be a metaphor for a world where children are subjected to the will of powerful and capricious adults, a reflection of abuse disguised as games and absurd logic that prevents the victim from comprehending their reality. Each of these elements suggests that Alice in Wonderland is far more than a children's story. It is a tale layered with symbolism that has sparked suspicions for over a century. Was Carroll merely a storyteller, or was he delivering a hidden message about the true workings of the world? The book remains an enigma, and its impact on popular culture suggests that its meaning runs far deeper than it appears. Just like in Wonderland, nothing is what it seems, and the real answers may be hidden behind the veil of the story. At its core, Alice in Wonderland is not just a whimsical tale. It is a roadmap for awakening, disguised as a nonsensical dream. Whether viewed through the lens of esoteric initiation, psychological fragmentation, or societal control, its message remains the same. Perception is the key to power, and the world is only as real as we believe it to be. Alice's journey mirrors the path of every individual who has ever dared to question the nature of reality. She starts as an innocent, accepting the structures around her. But the deeper she descends, the more she is forced to confront contradictions, absurdity, and illusion. Wonderland is a perfect simulation of a controlled system, a world where rules are arbitrary, logic bends to authority, and fear sustains power. but its greatest weakness is that none of it is real. This is where Alice in Wonderland becomes something more than fiction. It is a warning, a reminder that we too live within constructs, social, political, even psychological, that only exist because we accept them. The Queen's authority is meaningless the moment Alice sees through it. The court trial collapses once she refuses to participate. Her true power is not in fighting the system, but in recognizing that it has no real control over her. Yet the most unsettling question remains. Did Alice truly wake up, or did she only step into another illusion? The story doesn't tell us, because it's not just about Alice, it's about us. If you want to keep uncovering hidden knowledge and exploring the mysteries they don't want you to see, give this video a like and subscribe. The deeper we dig, the closer we get to the truth. See you in the next video, exploring the hidden mysteries that surround us. See you next time.